Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, Utsuki. In this video I will build what I talked about in the last video, that is the tower defense system, right? If you want to understand why I took certain decisions, probably the last video will help you, but I will as well explain certain things. So first I will I will create a scene and I will add the spawn point node, a resource node, a base node, a path node, and so far this. And I will create folders for each thing that is a bit more complex. So this is the current setup. I have the node to the word, that is RECN. In the spawner, I added a sprite 2D to mark where it is more clearly. Obviously, I could use a mark 2D as well, but I just think this is easier for me. I have a node 2D for the base that have the sprite 2D, an area 2D to detect collisions in the first layer, detecting the second layer, and a sphere as a collision shape in these sides. I added a node to the resource that I will use later, and a path to D. In the path to D, I added these points, so from the spawner to the base, 0, 100, 900, 100, 900, 300, 100, 300, 100, 500, 572, 500, 572, 700. So basically I started in the upper left, then to the down towards the base, right? So this took me 7 points, as you can see. And to make it straight, if you have any type of problem with this, the important part is the position. The in and outs is basically to make it curvier and pass for different paths before it reaches there. For example, if you have something that is curved, a path, you will use these in and outs. But if it is just a straight line, such as in this first example of this level 1, you do not need to concern about in and outs, alright? So now I will create the first enemy, and it is resource. So just to share the current progression, in the enemy I used a character body 2D, but actually you can use anything because you won't use the character body 2D or static or rigid. I think it's pretty okay to use anything you want. Animated sprite 2D, just in case I use animation for the enemy. A collision shape that I wouldn't use like in theory, because the most important part is the area, alright? Just to make sure, I created a group called enemy, and I assigned it to the body 2D and to the area HP, alright? I assigned on both the layer 2, but in the character body 2D with no mask, and in the area 2D with the mask 1. So it will only collide with things in the layer 1, alright? Now for the code, I attached the script to the character body 2D enemy. I create the class enemy, and here are the properties. So speed, damage HP, uh, the 3 on float. Even though I might want to use integer, I think in general, because of the upgrades and multipliers, it's always better to use float numbers rather than integer. All right. I added a layers, that is the enemy inner layers if it has, but I didn't think of how it would work yet, so I just will leave on null because I don't know. But maybe I will use a dictionary or even a scene that I should spawn after these be killed or something like this. Reward dictionary that I just realized I forgot to type it, but the reward will follow the key being a string, and the reward, the value actually, a variant, a path follow to D starting on null. It will be provided by the spawner, and add research callable that I will call upon the death. Alright, by default it has this signature, but actually it doesn't matter because it will be assigned um, where it will spawn, so whatever. In the physics process 2D, I check if there is path a path follow. If it has, I will add to the progress radio the product of speed and delta. Maybe this is too slow. I'm pretty sure this is slow, but since it is a default standard approach to always multiply things by delta, I will follow it because I don't remember. I'm pretty sure that progress rate starts on 0 and goes up to 1. So it's like 0% up to 100%. So multiplying it by delta that have like 0 dot something, I think 0.013, something like this, by default value, I will have a slow progress, alright, but I don't remember, so I will just leave it like this. And I create a function called deal damage. I always create this function for everything. It's basically a function with a parameter of float value that if the value is negative, I will just return. This could be used by to healing, for example, negative numbers would heal, but usually healing functions, actually this is my approach, all right. Healing functions is a different things with different consequences, animations. That's why I don't make the same thing, all right, but it's totally okay, like life change or something like this, and actually will affect both positively or negatively, all right. I deduct the HP by the value passed, and if I check if the HP is lower or equals to 0, I loop the reward dictionary, checking, and I call the callable, passing the key and the value. Alright. After it, I go to the get parent and I queue free, calling default because since I use callables, it's always a good idea to make sure the queue free will be called after everything be done. If you don't know, the call different basically says to this be executed in the end of the frame. So if you have something happening in that same frame, such as the call of the reward, it will just wait for everything to finish, then it will be called. I'm pretty sure you can achieve this with the process current frame or processed current frame or something like this, but obviously this is way easier. I create a enemy resource, right? So extend resource and the class name is enemy resource. I created the value, the variables, the properties, name, speed, damage HP. The rewards here, I remembered to type the dictionary, and the layers that as I said, I didn't decide yet. So why is this? Instead of set everything for different enemies, I'll just have everything in here, and in this spawn I will decide something like this. It's just to make it easier, and I don't need to create every single scene or different classes for different enemies. Alright, so the next step is this spawner, and I will right after I finish it, I will test and then I will come back. All right. Okay, guys. After a while, actually, a bunch of time, I finished the enemy part. All right. So what I changed first of all, I created uh, a slime enemy resource. Alright, so here in the folder I hold and I created new resource searching for enemy resource. So I set the name as slime, the speed as 0.1, the damage as 1, the HP as 1, and the reward of the slime, for some reason it disappeared. I'm not sure, but okay. So far I only have one enemy. Alright, so in the character enemy script, I created this function. Actually, I overwrote because there is a get property list by default in every single objects or maybe nodes that basically has the metadata of the class. So since it's custom, in this case, I created the metadata. All right. So I created a variable called properties of type array of dictionaries, starting with square brackets, and I added 5 properties. That is the ones that I want to set dynamically. So, and I appended a dictionary. So I appended a dictionary that have name, type, and value. You can add way more metadata to it, such as the full value, and some other things you might want, such as description and so on. Just to keep it simple, because I wasn't planning to make it, I just add a name, a type, and a value. Alright, so I created for each variable that I might want to set dynamically. So speed, damage, HP, layers, and rewards. So as you can see, each one has a name, the type, most of part of them are float. The rewards are dictionary, but for the property, since I didn't set the layers type yet, I just wrote type of layers. Alright. So this is the enemy. In the word, I added a script to the word that I added a canvas layer, as you can see right here. I added a control node, expanded with the anchor preset, and I added a button called start. Right, and in this word script, once I press the start button, I set the property active in the spawner to true. I will reach right there. So I attached a script to resource as well. So here on resource, I will manage everything related to the player. So in this case, I decided to use gold as the main resource to place the towers, starting on 0, and the player HP for now for test
type float starting on 3.
So I basically duplicated that. So I created a function with the same
signature
on the enemy and the resource with key of type string and value of type variant. And I check if um, this class has the meta has the a property with the set key. If it has, I match the type of the value. The match is the same thing of switch in certain languages, that basically I compare with different um, values without if and else. It's basically a if and else, but for dedicated values. Let me put it this way. So I use the type of the value, and I set the property with the current value of the property plus the new value.
So I'm basically adding the new value. If it is, for example, a boolean, I might actually update, not add. That's why I used a match. I didn't just set, all right? Because if it is, for example, gold, I need to increment. But if it's something like a shield that is a boolean, I actually must turn on or off.
I created a function called canSpend with a parameter of resources of type array dictionary, asking a boolean return. So I created a variable can afford of type boolean starting on true, and I loop for each resource passed in the parameter.
So first I check if the current class has this property with the same has meta
in the key of key basically.
So I would pass a dictionary with a pair key with a key pair value, key and the name of the property, and the value of this resource
of the required resource. So if it does not have, I will just continue.
So this keyword continue, just skip this step of a loop, all right? And if the class has this property, I check if the current resource or the current property is lower than the required value. Because if it is, I cannot afford, all right? So I set the can afford to false, I break the current loop and I return the can afford
being true or not. Then I duplicated this function and I create spend. It could be afford as well. So what I do, I recheck the can spend. So if it is false, I just return false. But if I can, I check if this current class has this property, and if it is, I also check the type of the value, and in this case actually should be decremented. So now I
spend the current resource,
right? Why I made these two different functions methods actually, because I might want, for example, lock, unlock, or enable or disable buttons. So I can just use the function independently, right? Then I added to the a signal area entered. So upon something enter an area, actually enter the area of the base, I check if it is part of the group enemy. If it is, I
assign to a new variable
the parent of this area, because
by default I have the enemy as the root node of the scene and an area inside of it that is where I detect. And I call deal damage. And I kill free the enemy that dealt damage using call deferred as I do. So in the deal damage function, in this case, I print the player got damage. If the value is lesser than 0, the damage to be dealt, I will just return because nothing will happen. But if uh, else, I will just continue decrementing the player health by the value. And if the player health is lower or equals to 0, I will print you lost. Obviously, in a normal scenario, I would add special effects, a panel, and so on. Alright? Now let's go to the spawner script. This one got some time to make it. So the first one, the first variable is current wave, that is an integer to keep track of the current wave, as I talked in the first video. I created a float value of timer. As I said, you can use the timer node, but I feel way more free to using a variable by myself, all right? A variable active boolean to turn in or off the timer and as consequence the spawner. I created a variable with add already enemy list. So here I load every single resource related to the enemy. As I said, remember, you do not need to make every single enemy, for example, in the ready function or init function of the node. You can actually use resources and make something like this, for example. So now every single data related to an enemy is already set in here, all right? Now with the waves variable, this one could be totally be in a JSON file. I didn't do this because it will just be more work, all right? But you can create a file, JSON file, and actually use every single info in here, there, and just load the file, right? So in these waves is a dictionary, int, and array. As I said, I will use array because I want to spawn things in a certain order, all right? In the first wave, as you can see, this one right here is related to the current wave, actually to the wave. So I used dictionaries, but you could actually create a class for it, but I just didn't want. So the dictionary has type, value, and times. The type, I create a enum right here, timer, and enemy, because I might want to use this for different things, like such as some random events, for example. That's why I created an enum for it. So the type, enemy type, as you can see, the first one. The second one is the enemy list key. So actually it's the same thing. It must be the same thing. And number of times actually is the times I will spawn an enemy using this same info. All right. So I made this to be very flexible. All right. Then I added a new dictionary of the type timer with a value of 3. So I will just wait 3 seconds and then I will spawn 2 slimes again. All right. Now I will call 2 eyes just to show you how it works. To be honest, in this current scenario, in theory, I will spawn 1 slime, then I will spawn 2 slime at the same time. So there is a chance they will just move exactly and I won't see them in a different images. One will overlap each other. So you might always want to either have a timer between them and actually these times key will just disappear because it won't happen, or in this spawn um, function you add um, a timer, uh, get 3 dot create timer 0 dot I don't know 1, so these limes will be in a different slightly delayed. But the problem with the get 3 dot create timer, it's this chances to freeze every single thing of the game unless you use a thread. All right, so I created this enemy just a packet scene to load this character body enemy 2D. And now in the process function, I didn't use the physics process because remember, physics processes ideally should be used only for physics related to motion, lack of lack of motion. Process ideally should be used to things that is not related to it. So I check if the spawner is active. I use these instead of just return because and actually make this less nested because I might want to do something related to the enemy, to the spawner that should happen after it. I don't know. So just in case. I check. So this is my current, actually my default way to handle timer is I have a timer variable and a timer limit variable. So I check if the timer is greater than 0. If it is, I decrement the timer by delta. And I check again why it's not if and else, because if I do if and else, if in the current frame I decrement the timer and actually get the lower than 0, it wouldn't be caught because I I am already in the first if, right? That's why I separate. So in this timer low lesser than 0, I would uh, assign the timer value with the timer limit, all right? But not in this case. So I call the function spawn and I check if the waves, remember waves at this is this huge variable juice that stores the order of the spawn. So I check if actually if the current wave has, if the waves variable has the current wave, so just in case I am like in the wave 21 and actually I only set 20 waves to prevent through an exception, I do this. And I also check if the current wave array, because remember each wave is an array of dictionaries, if this current array is greater than 0, because if it's not, so there is nothing else to happen in that wave. And I also check if the type of the current wave and actually the next action is a timer. So actually if the type is equals to type timer are enum. If it is, I set the timer to the value that is 3 in this case, first case, and I check if the current wave is lesser or equals to 0. So that current wave just ran out of actions. I set the spawner active to false and I go to the next one. So I could do this automatically. Actually, this part could be just be ignored, but I want the player to be able to go to the next wave manually by hitting the button. All right. Now the spawn function, I check, I do the same check in the I did in the timer. If the waves does not have the current wave or the number of actions of that current wave is lesser or
equals to 0, I return. So there is nothing to happen in here. Then I create a variable called current to get the current uh, action. I use pop front. I think I didn't set this, but I use the front function and pop front.
Front function basically get the first index of an array, basically array square bracket 0, and the pop front remove the first value
of remove and return, right? So in this case, in the current, I'm just removing the first value of the current wave. Then I check if the type is the type enemy. If not, return nothing. Here is where I loop, alright? This is where you might want in the end add a timer. So I first instantiate a path follow to D because just this won't work. You need path to D and a path follow to D. The path follow to D is the one that you can change in the progress and make things move around. I set the path loop to false because you can make something go like go to the start, to the end, and go back to the start again. I instantiate an enemy using the scene enemy and an enemy resource that is from the enemy list of the value of the current value. So basically I go to the enemy list right here and I check. So in this case, the value is a slime. So I will pick the enemy list, the position of slime. Then I create a variable property list to get to use to call that function I created, get property list. So in here, I create a function for set every single property to it. So basically I use the get the name of the property and I set the property of the enemy I instantiated from the value that is the enemy resource. Here I set basically these three lines do the same thing of this right here. But there is a problem. Since I am not sure if it was working, I wanted to show you guys that if you do not trust this, because sometimes it might throw an exception, mainly because of typed typed variables such as typed array, typed dictionary. This two is the one that I got most errors related to typed versions of them. Use this. If this doesn't work for you, use this one. Alright, set them manually. Go to enemy dot property is equal to value dot property. Alright, so I will comment this right here and I will test if my loop is working. Alright, so then I assign the path follow, the path I just instantiated, and I set the add resource callable to that add resource of this node. Alright, then I add the enemy to the path I instantiated, and then in the path to the I add the path.
So remember, what is the order? You have the path to D. Inside of it, only path follow to this, and inside of this path follow to this, you have the things that will move, right? So just this, and I check in the end of the spawn function outside of the for loop if the number of events of the current wave is greater, is lesser, or equals to 0. If it is, I turn off the spawn and I add one to the next wave. Alright, so this wave will just spawn 3 slimes. The first one waiting 3 seconds and add and instantiate 2 of them. Alright, so just to show you, I will play, hit start, and as you can see, this would be this line. So it The last one actually are two slimes at the same time. Alright, so I got hit, then I got hit again, and as you can see, player got damage, 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 and then I lost because, as I said, these spawn two slimes. So lastly, I will make the tower and actually defeat the enemies. Okay, guys. It took me way longer than I expected, even though I almost didn't make mistakes. So I still think it's because I am doing this in a cell phone, but maybe it just takes time, you know. I did a lot of things. I could finish like did make the last step before I get back got back right now, but I think you could be get lost. So that's why I came up right now. So first of all, here in the project settings, I added a left click input, and I bind left mouse button. All right. I think I already explained this, but I used the left mouse button because it works both in a computer and in a mobile. But I activated these visible collision shapes. Right? This is important for the playing in the game and this timer. As you can see, I just changed the wait time to 2 seconds, and I connected a timeout that I will show you soon. Here in the spawner. So I added a second wave. As you can see, it's basically this previous one, but one more enemy. So it will spawn one slime, then wait 2.5 seconds, spawn two slimes, wait 2 seconds, and spawn two more slimes. Here in the process, after the current wave plus equals 1, I set the timer I just added pause to false, and I started. Here in the spawn as well, inside of the if current wave dot size lesser or equals to 0, basically no remaining events, I set pause to false and started. I just wanted to say that I might talk slow because I didn't sleep, so I am slow. All right, I'm sorry. So in the on timer timeout, I check if there is any enemy in the current scene. If there is, I loop in the tree dot get notes in the projectile, and I kill freedom, and then I pause the timer. Basically, I'm getting rid of any remaining projectiles from the past wave. All right. In the node to the word, I also set the timer pause to true. All right. So when I start a new wave, it pauses, and when it ends, unpause. So in the canvas layer that we have our interface in quotes, I added a scroll container. All right, the minimum size is 100 by 50, and I added an HBox container. I changed the alignment to center, the custom size as well, 100 by 50, and this will be used to add the tower's buttons. All right. So far, I don't have any advanced interface, and I don't plan to make it because, as I said, this is just the system you can use to base your tower defense. All right.
And I added this area 2D. This area 2D is for the path. But remember, the path should only have,
As it is children, path follow 2D. That's why it's outside of it. I set the area, the layer to 4, right, of this area 2D, and I added a collision polygon, so it's not collision shape. And I added points, and I basically started in my base, and I was just following the path, all right, making these unique shape that is exactly the path the enemies follow, right? Why is this? As I am saying a lot of times, algorithm is a set of finite steps to solve a problem. It leads us to infinite, basically, possibilities to do the same thing. So you can do this, I will explain, in any different ways. This is the way that I
figure it out by myself. Alright?
probably not the best in terms of execution, maybe efficiency,
Uh, but it's good enough.
all right? So this is the level. This is changes I did in the level, all right? I added an area 2D around the path, setting the layer to 4. I added a timer to the spawner. I added that pause on pause start for the timer, and in the timer I searched for the enemies in the tree. If I don't find any, I get rid of all projectiles. Alright?
Then I created this.
Static body 2D tower node.
I created a group tower and a set in it. I added an animated sprite 2D, a collision shape 2D, a range, an area 2D for the range, and it is in the first layer detecting the second layer,
That is our enemy. And this is the default size of the area. You must use a circle because it uses radius. That's where
we can use range more, uh, way more with easy, right? And I added this space
in the area in the layer and mask for 4. Remember, our path is 4 and this isn't 4 4. Why is this? This will be used to make the towers placeable and not overlap each other.
Alright, so this is the size, basically the same size of the collision. I call it a space, right? So in the area range 2D,
there is signal for area entering and area exiting the range,
right?
So I attached a script to it. I named the class tower, and here is the properties. So the name of the tower, the damage, basically this damage is extra. I will explain soon. The range, so I will use this to set the radius. Attack speed, guys, and radio, like shooting rate or something like this, usually use a calculation something like seconds divided by the number. So in this case, the attack speed being 0.5, it means every 1 second I will shoot half bullet, or actually every 2 seconds I will shoot 1 bullet. All right. So this basically says 1 shot every 2 seconds. If you don't remember, it's just 1 divided by this value. The cost, that is the dictionary, basically what it will take to make to place the tower. The price that this is the part that I didn't add yet because I wanted to explain right now. But the price will be used to sell the tower, so you get some money back, actual resource. A projectile that is a projectile resource equals to null. This I will explain soon. And the projectile is seen, a packet is seen loading the projectile. So I have a variable holding the enemy list of the type enemy, and the timer starting is 0. In the ready function, I set the radius of my area to the range to the same radius of my range, and I set the timer equals to 1 divided by attack speed. As I said, this is basically the cooldown for the shootings. I added once again, the get property list following using all the properties I want to set dynamically. So the name, the damage, the range, the attack speed, the cost, the price, the projectile. In the process function, I check if the timer is greater than 0. If it is, I decrement from delta, and if it is lesser or equals to 0, I restart the cooldown and I call the function shot. And the shot function, I check if the enemy list is lesser or equals to 0. So if I do not have an enemy in the range I want shot, I create a projectile variable using the scene to instantiate. I get the property list of this projectile, and I set the projectile values using the projectile resource. All right, the underscore is the resource, as you can see right here, and without it is the local variable projectile. So I just set the value, I just set the using the properties, all right? And I match depending the type. So I have currently I have two types of projectile. One that follows the enemy and one that just shot straight, all right? So if it is the type chase, I pick the first enemy and assign it to the projectile. If not, I pick the first enemy in this case, but only the global position of it. Alright. I increase the damage of the projectile by the damage of the tower. I set the projectile shooting point or spawn point the same position of the tower, and I go to the tree scene, access the root, and add a projectile there. You might want to do it inside of the tower, but if your tower moves around, the projectile will get affected by it. All right. Maybe you want to check make the use top level, but I'm not sure if this affects the physics. That's why I didn't use. All right. And in our area range, I check if the area is in the group of enemy. If it is, I add to the enemy list. And when it isn't, I check if that enemy is inside of the enemy list. If it is, I remove it. All right. And I created this script, tower resource. So here I will basically hold tower types. So name, damage, range, attack speed, cost, price, projectile, and button. This button will be the one that I will use in the UI. All right. Since I cannot export variables node in on resource, I actually set the type of button as variant. That is the default value. All right. And I also, just to test, I set a default cost as gold 2. All right. So far, every single tower is costing 2 of gold. And I also set the get property list in here. All right. Now the projectile. So I create a character body 2D projectile. I create a group projectile and assign it to it. Animated sprite that is very small. I rescaled to 0.2. The collision is 1 and the area as well is 1, detecting 2. Remember, 2 is the enemy. I added a area entered signal and I attached a script. Here in the script, I created a class projectile with properties speed, damage, target position starting in vector 2, target starting on null, node 2D because I don't know if I will only use static body 2Ds or node 2Ds or character body 2D. Depends on the enemy. It might get a little bit specialized, so I let this open. And a lifetime for the bullet. So if the timer don't kill it, this lifetime variable that is a timer as well count down will kill it. And that type. The type is inside of the resource of projectiles. I will show you soon. And I by default start in the position. So we basically shoot directionally. So in the init function, so not in the ready function, I set the target position equals to the current position. Why is this? Just to prevent if it's not set the direction of the shot, at least I won't seek the default direction that is vector 2.0. All right. I created a get property list as well, using all the things that I said to set dynamically. So the speed, the damage, the lifetime, the type. All right. In the process function, I basically check if the lifetime is lesser or equals to 0. If it is, I will delete the projectile. If not, I will just decrement. Very basic timer. In the physics process, I check if there is a target because it is optional. The target will only be set if the type is chase. If not, if the type is position, or it means only shoot straight ahead, there is already a target position, right? So if there is a target, I update the target position, and I will still only using one variable, that is direction of type vector 2. And this math is just initial like the target position lesser the current position dot normalized. This is something that is great to memorize. This can be used to basic movement system. So you should always think as between parentheses the target global position minus the current position dot normalized. You will receive a vector 2 ranging from negative x1 and negative y1 and positive y1 and positive x1. All right. Then I set the velocity, that is the direction times the speed, and I call move and slide. And in the area, I check if the projectile hit or entered the area from an enemy. If it is, I call the deal damage function from the enemy, and I kill free calling deferred because it is calling a function that is not inside of this class. So to avoid any exceptions, I call it deferred. All right.
So this is the projectile, very basic as well. And the same thing I did for the tower, I created projectile resource with speed, damage, lifetime, the type, and here is the type. As you can see, only 2 position in chase, but I might want to add more. That's why I used enum, alright? And the get property list as well. Then I created this
tower placeholder, static embodied 2D tower placeholder. This is the way that I thought. All right, I didn't plan anything, so I naturally went into this direction. I could use control nodes to make to use the native drag and drop system. But since I'm using a static bodies, I just decided to keep going with this. So this static body will be used to drag and this for the player decide where it will place the tower. So this is just as the name suggests, a placeholder, right? So it is in the group of tower because this will be used to check if it is conflictant with
other towers. So an animated sprite 2D, a collision shape here. The collision is 1 and an area detection for 4. This is for
the towers, all right? And here I have 2 signals, area entered and area exited. So here is the script. So class tower placeholder. So for variables, you can place boolean starting on true. A function called spawn tower that is a callable that I will use in the level. At the tower resource in starting null, and the collision action, the conflicts. All right. So using the input function, I check if the left click, that input that I talked about, if it was released. So I only will place a tower if the left mouse button is released. So while it is holding down, nothing will happen. So when it is released, I will call the function that is inside of the callable spawn tower, passing the global position, so current global position of the tower placeholder, and the tower resource, right? Then I will kill free. It doesn't matter if it is a success or not. I must delete this placeholder because, as I said, it's just a placeholder. In the physics process, even though I am not using the velocity and moving slides, I by default anything that moves I use physics process. All right, so I assign the can place boolean variable is equal to the size of the collisions array. If it is lesser or equals than 0, it means there is no conflicts, so I can place right here. And if I can place, I access the animated sprite 2D and I change the visibility self-modulate to green. And if I cannot place, I change to red. And I assigned the global position of the placeholder equals to the get global mouse position snapped by 16 by 16. So what this basically do, get the mouse position. If on mobile, this is just updated when you touch the screen, all right? And I snap it. I use the function snapped, and basically it clamps the movement. So this is a very helpful if you want to have a grid type of a system, all right? So basically it divides my screen into squares of 16 by 16, and basically I can only place in these points, all right? And in the area detection signals, basically append or erase the conflicts, the collisions, all right? The same thing I used so far for a lot of things, for the tower, for example. Okay, before we keep going, I created two projectiles. So projectile 1, default speed of 200, 1 of damage, lifetime of 7, and the type of position. And the projectile 2 that is slower, speed of 100, damage of 1, has more lifetime, 15 seconds, and the type is chase. So basically I have one directional shot that is fast, and a chase type of projectile that is slower. All right, and I created two towers. If you are not understanding, this is the research, the same thing that I did for the monster. All right, if you hold right here, create new research, you type the research you want to create. For example, the projectile I'm just showing, the projectile research I created. All right, that's why it's so important. And I created two type of towers, the archer towers and the mage towers here. So the name, archer tower, damage 1, this is the extra damage, all right? The range of 400, so there will be a circle with the radius of 400. The attack speed is 1, so one shot every 1 second. The cost is the default cost, all right? That 2 of gold. The price, it is the selling value is 1. And the projectile, I loaded the first one, all right? And I'm pretty sure I changed the speed, but I don't remember. I'm very sleepy right now. And the major tower, that is the basic idea. The range is shorter, the attack speed is way slower. One shot every 4 seconds. The price of two, the cost would be higher, but as I said, I'm just leaving the default value for now. And the projectile of chase type, right? So this is the things. Now, lastly, I think the one that changed most maybe is the research script, all right? So here in the this game research, I added a variable called buttons, an array, and a button container that is the HBox container that I just created. I just needed the HBox because the scroll container will just be there to scroll if I have more options, all right? So, and I also preloaded on ready, all right? So remember, there is a net on ready right there. If you want to preload something, if you just want to load you are okay. So here I load both scenes for the placeholder and for the tower, all right? Here in the I'm pretty sure I already showed the get property list. Here in the ready function, I loop in the available towers array. So here, as you can see, I preload all my both
towers. All right, I created a variable called available towers already as well to preload the tower resource, and both resource, the archer tower and the mage tower, was loaded. And I loop in the ready function. I instantiate a normal button. Ideally, you will have a custom button for the towers with beautiful icons and so on. I set the custom minimum size by code. The text is just the text name of the resource. I set, remember, in the tower resource, there is the button of the type variant. Here I set the button I just instantiated, assigned to it. I connected the signal press of the button to a function called create placeholder, passing the resource. Then in this button array, I append the just instantiated button, and then I add as a child to that HBox container. All right, so basically this check the amount of available towers I have for this level. I create a button, I assign the button to the resource, I connect the event, and then I append to the array button. So it's not the available towers array anymore, and to the box container to really be showed. Then I created this function create placeholder of type tower resource. So here I check if I can spend. If I cannot, I just ignore. So if the player is still being able to hit the button to buy, it won't happen anything if they cannot spend money, gold. Then I instantiate a tower placeholder. I set every single value of the resource to this new tower placeholder. Then I set manually the tower, that is the tower resource, the type from the parameter. I set the spawn tower function is equal to the spawn tower only signature. So remember, if you are assigning a callable, only assign the signature of the function. All right, you should not use the parentheses. All right, and get root, and I add to the scene. All right, using the getRoot.root.addChild instance. So this create placeholder basically instantiate that tower placeholder, set the values, set the functions to spawn the true tower, and add to this scene, right? The spawn tower function, so it takes the position and the tower resource. Then I use the spend. I call the spend function, so to check once again if the player can spend the money, and if it can, it will be debit the resource. I instantiate a true tower this time. I set every single property. I don't need to use this instead of the 4. I am very sleepy. I set the global position, so the position of the tower, to the position of the placeholder from the parameter, and I add a child. So basically, for now, the tower is a child from the resource node. All right. Here I change a bit the resource. Now there is no has meta. I think I was using incorrectly. So now I'm just matching the type of value, type float or type int. Set the key is equals to get key plus value. It means just incrementing the property, and
I loop the available towers array, and I set if the button is visible, if the player can spend money, passing the cost of it. Alright, so basically it loops in the array of available towers and set the button from the source, alright, from the tower resource is equals to if the player can spend that amount of resource. Alright. I also changed the can spend and spend. I do not have anymore the has meta, as I said. I think I was using incorrectly. So now it's just can afford equals to true. If get the key is lesser to the value I cannot afford, and I will return. This might throw exception if you do not have the property. All right, so in this case, always pay attention to the property. All right, if you do not have the property, this will throw an exception. The expanded function as well, as I said, I do not check anymore, but at least I check if the get key is null, right? Then, instead of matching the float and int function and int value, I just set the underscore. This underscore is basically any type, the default path, alright? And I decrement from the value. In the available towers, I call the same function I called there to hide or show the buttons if the player can afford or not after buying a new tower. And the rest is the same thing. So this was the path I took to make this. So far, this is the current state of the game. So by hitting play, this is the path. Remember, this is being showed because of the collisions the bug I activated for the collisions. And as you can see in the left, in the lower left, I have a button, Archer Tower. All right. So if I hit this, now I have a placeholder. If I move around and hit the places that have that 4, it will get red, and out of it, it will be green. And now, and as you can see, it snaps. All right, so it's not free. It's thanks to that snap function. And upon release my screen, it is placed. The left lower button was hidden because I do not have money anymore. I don't have this information in the UI, but as I said, I wanted to get back because as I am recording for basically 40 minutes and I didn't show yet. So yeah, a lot of things. Now I can start, and here we go. And I can place a new tower. Now I have more money, so now I cannot place right here, but I can place right here, for example. I can even place one more. So here we are. Let's go. Start the second wave. A lot of random shots. As you can see, the shot stays in that position. That's why it's important, in my opinion, the lifetime. But I can change to make it just go straight ahead out of the screen. I can place even more, but I do not have more waves because I didn't create yet. All right. So this is the current state of the game. So now I just have to make the selling option. So upon clicking hitting the tower, I will be able to sell it, get a part of the money back, and delete the tower. Add informations about my research, adding more levels, but there is a problem. currently. The spawner uh, class will get really, really big if I keep adding things to this waves uh, variable. So I'll try to use the file for it. All right. Okay, guys, let me just explain the last thing I did. I didn't make the order, the upgrade, and the control effect that I talked about, but I added the selling part. All right. So what I did in the tower is in, I added a control node with a custom size 128 by 128, and I assigned a signal, mouse entered and mouse exited. All right. And I added a button in here uh, with a text cell 40 by default and the pressed signal. So in the mouse enter and exit, I basically set the button cell visibility to true or false, and in the pressed signal of the button, I loop in the price, and I call the function add resource passing the key and the value, and then I kill free the tower. Here I changed the price. The price before was float. I basically used the same idea of the cost. All right, so array of dictionary, as you can see here. I change it from init to ready, and I check if the price size is greater than 0. If it is, I set the text cell for X and the format. Format, if you don't know, is basically a way that you can replace text for anything else if you want. You just make sure to use curly braces between what you want to replace and pass a dictionary with the key and the value pair. All right. Here for the tower and the tower resource, I also changed the price to array dictionary, the same thing of cost. And remember to change the type in here in the properties get property list. I changed it from type float to type array as well. All right, and at the full value of 1.0. Why 1.0? Just to avoid the conflict from Boolean interpretations, all right? Because if you have something that have the value 0 or 1, if you have a generic typing such as variant, might actually use Boolean instead. So by using the floating decimals, actually, you avoid to be converted to Boolean, right? Here in the resource, in the spawn tower, I set the instance dot add resource to the function add resource, the same idea. In the character body projectile, I changed how it was calculating the position, because with this outside of the if, it is basically checking using the same principle of the chase. So I basically moved this, I indented this inside of the target if target, and I replaced the init function in here to ready function, and I basically copy and paste this. So now our projectile is truly just going straight ahead. All right. For the level in the control, I changed the mouse. All right, from mouse stop to mouse ignore. I think mouse pass could work as well, I'm not sure. This is just to allow us to hit the buttons inside of the map, alright? Because since in the inside of the tower I have now a control node, I could be blocked. All right, so
Remember to change the mouse interaction to not stop in the node, in the label. And lastly, I created I moved the wave variable. As you can see now, it's totally empty. I created a JSON file called waves. Here, I copy the variable values, paste, change it from number keys to string. So now all of them are in the quotes, and the type as well. As you can see, every single type in here is on a string. This is just to make sure I don't have the constant from the enums, but it would work as well the number. So if you don't want to replace everything for a string, use number instead. I also added a third wave just to play, you know. So now one slime will be spawned, then one again, then two, and then two again. All right. So here in the spawner, I created a variable called file, basically passing the JSON file inside of the level. All right. And in the ready function, I created a variable called file, using file access to open the given path with the mode read, and I check if the file is not null. If it's not, I create a variable called data that basically parse the text from the file into JSON, that is a dictionary. I loop in the every key of that dictionary. I create a variable to the value of that key value pair. I loop inside of this value, and I set the type that was string to now the enum dot get passing the string. All right, so you can either for enums you store as the enum value itself, number, or string, and you can use the get, the find methods from enums. All right, and here I assigned, and after the loop, I assigned the waves in the position of the key, converting into integer equals to value. All right. So if you don't understand, remember our waves are basically dictionaries. So we have the key, that is a string, and an array. This loop on the inner value is to change every single dictionary inside of this array. That's why I have to loop, because this each dictionary is inside of this bigger array. And in the end of it, I change from a string, the key of the wave here, to. So guys, I made a mistake. Actually, it's optional. All right, I changed the mouse exited to focus exited. All right. So now, if I by only passing the mouse or hitting the screen of my cell phone, in theory, the button will become visible, but by doing anything else, the focus will be change and hide the button, because if it were mouse entered and etc in the mobile, by like leaving the screen to hit the button, it will trigger to hide the button as well. All right, that's why I had to adapt it. So currently
it's something like this. I selected Archer Tower, place right here, by dragging my screen or the mouse, it will appear sell for 1. By hitting it, I sold, and I can place one more. But now, if I sell it, I do not have money enough, gold enough. All right. So let's complete this current wave. So as you can see now, okay, whatever. So now, as you can see, the shot is just straight. Uh, it's not uh, uh, stuck in the path anymore. All right. So this is uh, the current state of the game, of the system. All right. So what the parts that I want to make listen this video, if you want, guys, make sure to comment. So now, so I can like complete this system entirely, but ideally it should be easy for you to implement. If you don't, I will explain how can you do it. For the order mode here in the tower, as you might remember, I pick the target in the shot function here by accessing the type and dependent chase position. I pick the first or the first, and it is global position. By changing, you might want to create an enum to the target type, for example, and actually inside of each match of this one, you'll have another one that is the order type, for example, and it will check if it's first. You want to use this line. If it is last, you will use the back, dot back. If it is the closest one, so you will need to make some calculations. If it is the weakest, the strongest one, you should loop in every enemy list and change it to the one with the most health. If it is the weakest one, is the opposite, the one that has lowest HP, for example. For the upgrade, you can create more tower resources, such as Archer Tower level 2, like that. And you will have more buttons, like more UI buttons, more UI related to the tower. By hitting the select in the tower, for example, you will create a context menu, for example, and you will have, for example, in the left, the upgrade, in the right, the selling. All right. By hitting the upgrade, you will call the function upgrade, for example, that you will have a property, the next level, for example, or next level that is a bunch of tower resources, and you will just update, set the current properties of the tree. All right, it's literally update the damage and the range, the attack speed, for example, the cost and the price, for example. For control effect such as slow, freeze, burning, poison, and so on, it's a bit more complicated. You might want to use this state machine that I had a video about it. And instead of one state per machine, you'll have an array of states. And for example, by hitting with the projectile or on upon the enemy walking over the affected area, you will append state machines of that certain effect. Each enemy will have now duplicated version of each property, an original value and the current value. So in the state start function of each state, you will calculate using original value, for example, and upon stop, you will reassign the original value to the current value. You might want to do this because, for example, you have a slow, so cutting in half the speed. The speed, for example, is 10, goes to 5. But if another tower, for example, add another state, the original value could be 5. So actually would return with perma slow, for example. So that's why you need original and current values. So I think, guys, that's it. As I said, if you want, I will I will finish it for you. Now, before I go, I will just show every single node and every single script I created for you. All right. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.